Thank you so much. So much amazing work is being done by our organizers and our speakers. And so I'll share a little bit about what I've been doing. So Sandra actually gave me some really great tips, and they were like, if you just like list all of the different things that you do and then focus on one or two to like go deeper. And I was like, oh, that's such a great idea. So these are some things that I work on. I support survivors. So one of the ways in which I do that is that people who are survivors of abuse, domestic abuse, sexual abuse, they know that they can come to me because they know that I'll believe them. So they know that I am a safe space no matter what. So I get a lot of survivors who come to me looking for help in various different ways, and I'm always a resource for them. I also do youth mentoring in climate justice, in racial justice, in economic justice, in decolonizing. This is something that I prioritize because it is the youth who are being subjected to all of the worst results of the incredible bad policies of so many years, right? I educate people in coalition building. I do anti-patriarchy training. I do Indigenous solidarity work. So, for example, I was just on the East Coast for 2 weeks because I was doing some Indigenous solidarity work with community members there who wanted me to come with them to certain parts of sacred land in order to witness what was happening in that place. And I can't say any more about it because of security culture, but I was just there, and I was in Florida for that during Hurricane Ian. And then shortly after that, I was in, what we call North Carolina. Obviously these are all occupied lands, sacred lands. And while we were driving through North Carolina, we saw fires going on. So at every step, there was always some reminder about the violent results of colonization. I also do climate justice education, of course, and anti-imperialism and anti-war training as well. I also do online security training, and I do anti-Hindu phobia education. And I also write articles about a wide variety of subjects, including health, including racism, colonization, imperialism, etc. So the two things that I want to focus on today is anti-imperialism education. The reason why I focus on this is because we used to have a vibrant anti-war movement, and that died when Barack Obama became president. It just died, even though he started 5 wars. And the fact that we have had no real genuine anti-war movement for well over 12 years now, despite the fact that we're in endless war, and despite the fact that we are now on the brink of nuclear war because we have a warmonger in charge and a warmonger cabinet. That's why I focus on this topic. So I actually have a series of presentations, 2 of which are public right now. Imperialism 1 is where I educate people about the tactics of imperialism that are thousands of years old that we still do. And we still do them because they work. So I systematically go through these ancient tactics of imperialism that the US as an empire still does because they're effective. Imperialism 2 that I talk about, the next one in the series, is about systemic child sex abuse. Because systemic child sex abuse is one of those tactics of imperialism. It's not an accident that everywhere the empire goes, they abuse the children. They do it on purpose, because when you abuse the children, you are creating such trauma that then becomes intergenerational trauma. So if we don't understand that, and if we don't understand the history of it and where it comes from and how long it's been around, we're never really going to understand how to actually interrupt it. And if we do nothing about systemic child sex abuse, we will never interrupt rape culture, and we will never heal from our intergenerational trauma. And if we don't heal, because we are part of nature, so if we don't heal, we have no hope of healing Mother Earth. Right? So those are the two presentations in that series that are public now. There are more coming, which will focus on the different tactics of imperialism to go into the details of them so that we really understand them. And an example of how that is playing out is this morning, I was at the Seattle Raging Grannies retreat, and they asked me, how can we as elders help to uplift the youth and inspire them when it comes to capitalism? And I explained to them that capitalism is simply an expression of the war machine. And I went all the way back to Smedley Butler, and I showed them a quote from Smedley Butler, who was, during his time in the 1930s, when he retired, he was the most decorated US Marine in history. And he talked about how in his 33 years and 4 months in service, he was a racketeer, a gangster for capitalism. So I was explaining that to them, and I was saying, right now we're on the brink of nuclear war, and who knows better than our elders who have lived through the Cold War, who have done drills in school for what happens when there's a nuclear bomb? Who knows better than you to educate our youth about why they need to be motivated and why they need to confront the war machine? So that was just this morning. Another thing that I do is, like I said, anti-Hindu phobia education. And I've been doing this for many years, and FTP is 5 years old now. And last year, when we were 4 years old, I was able to release the presentation that I had been working on for 4 years, which was my 1,000 years of Hindu colonial trauma. And that continues. I am continuing to do that. We're actually having a Hindu caucus event in November, where Hindus in India, the US, and the UK will all be gathering together to discuss the work that I've been doing. And one of the things that that I'm really, really proud of is the echoes of the work that I've been doing, and the people who've been learning from it are now taking what I have taught them and are now expressing it in their own spheres. And that's not, like to even go into the details of how many Hindus have come to me, how many Hindu youth have come to me after watching my series and learning about 1,000 years of Hindu colonial trauma. I urge you to watch my series, because you will understand so much more about world politics today if you understand Hindu trauma. The reason why is because for the majority of the last 2,000 years, the richest country in the entire planet was India. And after 1,000 years of Hindu colonial trauma, the indigenous civilization with the largest population is India. But what will they tell you at the UN? What they'll tell you is that the indigenous people are only 5% of the world's population. Well, Hindus are 1.2 billion people worldwide. Does that sound like more than 5% of the world's population? So we're lied to on purpose about how many indigenous people actually exist on the planet, so that they can shut down any conversation about indigenous rights. So if we want to understand how to actually defend the planet from climate change, from imperialism, from colonialism, all of those things, if we want to understand how to do it, we do actually have to understand how the most successful indigenous civilization in resisting colonialism did it. And that's why you need to watch my presentation.